I just made myself my own pumpkin spice latte with canned pumpkin, some spices, stevia, vanilla extract, and almond milk. Needs a little work though. Got a little shot of espresso in there too, but it's not quite there. Need tips for a good pumpkin spice latte. Oh, hi there, Sage Kennedy of VO2 Max Productions here with another training talk / rant. Today we're going to talk about the sub 2 hour marathon, a very elusive barrier that has kind of been a focus, I guess, in recent times. There's a couple publications out, there's been studies on it. It's intriguing to me because it's like, you know, pushing the limits of human endurance. And fast forward here for a second, about 8 years ago, one of my college buddies and I at Cornell University, we were in the dining hall, and he was a mid-distance runner, 150, 800 runner, very sharp guy. I think he ran he was a mechanical aerospace engineer at Cornell. We made a bet, and the bet was, in 10 years time, and again it's been about 8 years, in 10 years time, is the world record for the marathon going to be under 2 hours? And he said, yeah, I think it is. And I said, no way, you're not going to crack 2 hours. So we've got 2 years left. 2 years left, Mike. $10 was on the line, I believe. So I'm looking forward to that payment. So, you know, there's kind of been a debate about whether it's possible, when it's going to happen, if it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And so there's been energy on that, and I kind of wanted to talk about that because it kind of has implications for improving one's own performance in the marathon. Not that I'm even close to the level of these top guys, the East Africans, who have, you know, the world record, 2:02:57, 55. I don't even know what it is. It's 2:02 high. So still need to take off almost 3 whole minutes to crack 2, and this needs to be on a certified course. It can't even be like Boston, didn't count. It counted as a world best, but not a world record, because the point to point and kind of there was a tailwind, and net downhill matters too as well. So the course does matter. But we'll look at the science kind of behind it. We'll look at a couple of publications, and I got the idea because one of the athletes I coach, Larry, gave me this book, this great book. Thank you, Larry. This is a wonderful gift. I was a little skeptical at first when I saw the title, but man, I read this thing when I was flying out to California and back on a couple of plane flights, and finished it. It was really good. It was surprisingly good, very well written, really digs into some research, digs into the lifestyle. He interviews top East African runners, Jeffrey Mutai. He follows other top runners, but especially Jeffrey Mutai. He gets into the mindset of them. I mean, these guys are feeling a lot of pain when they race marathons and half marathons, just like I am. A lot of people think, oh, you know, those elite guys, they make it look so easy. They're floating along at 440 mile pace. It's a cakewalk. They don't feel pain. They feel a lot of pain. Everyone's pushing themselves. If you're pushing to the limit, I mean, it's really intense. These guys are going real red line, close to, you know, their half marathon pace even, which is close to lactate threshold. So we're talking about very high velocity running. Man, you know, coming through the first half in like 1:01:30. They're going for a 61-minute half marathon split and trying to keep going. I couldn't even imagine. I can't even run close to that. I could keep up with them for like a 5K, basically. They're dropping 440s, 430 miles split sometimes in the middle of the race. It's ridiculous. But he goes into the lifestyle. He goes into like factors where, you know, nature versus nurture. We look at the East Africans, and, you know, there's some really good things in their environment. They train on dirt roads that are really rolling and hilly. They do fartlek workouts. They do really hard long runs. You know, one of the top marathon coaches in the world, Renato Canova, coaches a lot of them. It's high intensity, high volume training, very demanding. We look at, you know, they're at altitude, 7,000 to 8,000 feet, 9,000 feet, training 120, 130, 140 miles a week. They grew up running barefoot. They have good form. They're all pretty lightweight. They look at their diet, their high carb diet. They eat ugali. It's supported a lot of what I already knew, but to really get in depth, to get into Jeffrey Mutai's head of how he feels pain during a race and how he strategizes, and how they throw down these amazing times and train with all this pressure and all this financial incentive as well. There was a good quote that said, they come out of they believe, a lot of the top runners believe, that you can't be a world-class marathoner unless you came out of poverty. A lot of these guys, they grow up in little tiny houses where they share it with all their siblings and their parents, and they have to do hard manual labor, and average family income of a household is like $900 a year USD. And so, if they go off to Boston or New York and they win $200,000 from the race, they get a $50,000 appearance fee and a extra $50,000 or $100,000 bonus, even after agent fees. That's a lot of money to take back. And they talk about Sami Wanjuru and how maybe the money led him to too much partying and drinking, and it leads to distractions. And so Mutai will go back and he'll go train in this little hut, essentially, where they don't even have running water and electricity. Well, maybe they had electricity. I think he was watching TV. But they're sleeping on out in the boonies, out in the country. They're eating ugali and vegetables that they grow in their local gardens. The soil is very rich up in the Rift Valley. So very high carb diet, very plant based. Occasionally they'll eat meat. They'll put a lot of milk and sugar in their chai tea, of course. But it's a very carbohydrate rich diet with ugali and a lot of vegetables that they grow themselves there. So good local sustainable farming. And it kind of contrasts with another book that I read before by Phil Moffatone, 159, where he talks about how easy it's going to be to crack the 2-hour marathon, essentially. He said a sub 150 is likely, actually, which I am in big disagreement with. Sub 150, nah. And he actually insults their diet. He says that their diet's deficient and lacking. They need to eat, more fat and protein. Their high carbs are bad for them. Yada yada yada. I don't. This book, I feel like, is full of a lot of just generalizations and not good data, not good evidence. Really extrapolating a lot of things. Just full of generalizations, kind of misinformation. Whereas this book, very good, very factual, researched very well. This guy went and lived. The author went and lived with these top runners in Africa. He rode his bike as they were training. He went to the major marathon races. He provides a really good history and framework of the sport of marathon running, and talks about the progression and what top exercise physiologists have predicted. Maybe 157 is possible, 158. Personally, I don't think the record's coming down anytime soon. I think it's possible, but I think it's going to take several decades. I think at least 20 or 30 years maybe, and even then, the first thing that I would be suspicious of is that there's going to be drug use involved. Whoever runs 159 first is going to need to be extensively tested, and there's going to be suspicion always around them. And even in the 2 Hours book, he does go into illegal performance enhancing drug use, and how that there's doctors in Africa that will, if you pay them under the table, they'll give you substances. And a lot of these guys, to be honest, I think a lot of them that have gotten caught cheating or are cheating maybe don't even know they're injecting EPO, or they don't, they're taking pills for whatever, testosterone, HGH. I don't even know if you take pills for that. I guess you could do cream maybe. They don't even know, and WADA might test them, and they trip a positive. And it's definitely happening, with IAAF corruption that we've seen, and then the scandals in Russia. But you gotta believe it's happening in every single country. I mean, there's certain, mindsets maybe in places where, like, big time cycling type of endurance, extreme sports is kind of, maybe doping's a little more common than someplace like New Zealand, but you gotta believe at this day and age it is prevalent in pretty much every single country that's competing in these types of races. And that includes mountain ultra trail running, that includes track, definitely track, includes NFL, hockey, whatever. It's really sad to see. I'm all for a clean sport, and I believe a lot of these East African guys are clean. They do it through hard work. They do it through the environment they grow up in. You're running out of poverty. That's pretty extreme motivation to do something well. And you've got no other distractions. Here in the US, you got kids that want to go play soccer, they want to play football, they don't want to run. In Kenya and Ethiopia, that's the national sport basically. I think they play soccer, but there's a lot of kids running around dirt tracks dreaming that they're going to be the next big runner and that they're going to get their ticket to go around and do the world marathon majors, and so they focus on it from a young age. When you have numbers like that doing that, you're more likely to get a lot of stars. It looks at their genetics and they try to find the super genes that allow these Africans to be so dominant, but they might have, being leaner generally is going to help, and growing up at altitude is generally going to help, and they do examine that in depth. But those guys train hard, they're mentally tough, they eat high carb, plant-based basically, a little bit of meat in there as a luxury item, a little bit of milk and sugar in their chai tea, but other than that, you got to give those guys a lot of credit, honestly. And the training theories coming out of there: high volume, relatively high-end aerobic work, high-end intensity does lead to injury. You're not immune to injury at all. A lot of guys will fizzle out, but you might as well catch fire and burn it hot while you can, if you want to really push the envelope of what's possible, and if you want to set a world record or crack 2 hours in the marathon. So that's kind of my rant on that. Again, I really recommend the 2 Hours book. I do not recommend Phil Moffattone's book, 159, but this is a great read. Really, really good read. Even if you're not even that into the high levels of the sport, even if you're a beginner marathon runner, it's a really well-written, approachable type of read. So recommend that. Thank you for Larry for sending that to me. Really appreciate it. And I hope, feel free for anyone to comment below with their opinions. I'm sure there'll be some strong opinions on this sub 2 hour marathon topic, as well as any other insights you might have or questions. I can't get back to all of the comments, but I do read most of them, so I do appreciate it. I appreciate all the subscriptions. Thanks for sharing this on social media. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, and I hope your fall training is going well, and that you're enjoying running. So thanks so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.